Beyond Limits. Expanding minds. Opening hearts. Connecting into oneness. We've done a couple of shows about being in balance. But when I ask people what's important right now, what's going on with you, they go, I just feel like my life is out of balance. And I said, well, you know, the world to a large extent is out of balance just because of the COVID situation. But for many people, it's been out of balance for a longer time than that. And this really exacerbated that. So I guess there are some things that would be nice to talk about to help people in terms of being in balance, and what does that really mean? I mean, I think of the scale, and you have, you know, the thin me on one side and the heavyset me on the other, and the heavyset me is all my old habits and old ways of thinking and all that, and the skinny me is the part I'm not paying attention to, which is what are the dreams and joys and loves that I have that I'm not paying attention to. So how do you see what's going on in terms of the people coming to your center, people you coach with, counsel with? Where are they in terms of balance?
Well, a couple things come to mind. Number one, it's the balance between the inner and the outer, or the outer and the inner, because the inner is always reflecting in the outer, and the outer is always reflecting in the inner. Mm-hmm. However, people don't even realize it. Mm-hmm. They don't realize that there's that balance there. And if they understood that, they could be moving. They could be sort of moving their path. That's one mm-hmm. thing. Then there's the balance of spirit, mind, and body, understanding mm-hmm. that there's a balance that we have to maintain in that aspect of life. There's also the balance of the areas of life, whether it be relationships, money, career, spirituality, health. So you've got that balance going on. Then you've got the balance going on between relationships, balance between my relationship with my wife, with my kids, with my grandchild, with my friends, and that type of thing. And the one that really hit me, because my prayer partner passed away this last week, was this. Right. How do I balance the past with the now, and the now with the future? Because I have a void. I had a person in my life that was there, a part of my life for 16 years that's now gone. I want to respect that memory, but how much of that memory do I bring into this now so that I'm still able to be fully present, like as I'm doing in this podcast? Mm-hmm. And I'm not paralyzed by the past. And that's what happens with a lot of people. They get paralyzed by that past and they don't realize, wait a second, there's a lesson to be learned, and bring that forth, but don't let it paralyze you and stop you. And so I look at the now as the balancing point between the past and our future dreams. Mm-hmm. And so how do I take what was good from the past and where do I aspire to be in the future, and yet fully live every moment of this now? That's where I am right now in this whole thing.
Yeah, I see that. And when you talk about all the different dynamics and balancing these different dynamics, from family to work to, you know, all the things that we do in our extraordinarily busy everyday lives, and our dream of who we thought we were going to be, what we thought we were going to be doing, what we thought the world was going to be like, and that disbalance. Where's the passion? I see passions going awry right now. The passions are going into things that really aren't that important to your daily life. They're going into things that are very out there, whether it's politics, whether it's talking about COVID, or whether all these big, big things that are out there. And yet, so many people are living quiet lives of desperation. And it hasn't changed a whole lot. And I really get this. They have no concept that life is eternal. They don't know what that really means. They only know that there's a certain amount of time in this life span, in this body, And at that point, they don't know, it's uncertain, and they may end up not doing anything. Maybe, it's like completely forgotten. Don't know who I am anymore when I cross over, or maybe it's going to be something unbelievable. I don't know which, but they're so glued into the material world that, as Madonna would say, the material girl in the material world, that they're really lost in it right now.
And Larry, it comes down to, too, is how many people are truly even striving to be aware during this time? How many people have turned over any sense of awareness and given it to the media, the public opinion, what's happening around them in their city? A lot of people they want to get out of all this desperation, so they focus on, I'll put all my energy into sports, and so sports becomes all-consuming. Or the massive thing that I see is people, the data would say people overeating right now. They're saying that during COVID, people have gained on average 19 to 30 pounds.
Yeah.
Well, that's absolutely huge when you think about it. My band, my music director came up and said, hey, I had this gig, here's some pictures. And he brought in a extra keyboard player and a singer. And I looked at the keyboard player. I said, I've never seen this guy. He says, you remember him? He used to come to Agape. He was 50 pounds heavier. I didn't even recognize him.
Yeah.
And so I think what's happened is people really, truly don't know what's most important in their lives. Mm-hmm. And because they don't know what's most important in their lives, they're not focusing on that, and they don't have the balance anymore.
Yeah.
And they're lost. They're absolutely lost.
Yeah. Yeah. That feeling of being lost or desperate to find oneself, or what we've done, it seems to me, is we've buried that. Yeah. And what we've done is placated it by putting all of our attention in the outer world. And the Delphi Oracle that says, know thyself, our mind doesn't know the first thing about itself.
No.
Which is, Ernest Holmes says, you have to understand the mind and understand how to discipline the mind in order to use it as a tool instead of it using you. And this is where I think we're at, is that the mind is using the body and the outer world for whatever it thinks it needs. And one thing we do know is there's a lot of addictions. And the addiction is continually doing something that you don't want to have in your life.
Yeah. And what's fascinating is when you go back to the ancient teachings in India, and they talk about one of the prophets that came from a prior whatever iteration of humans, the last word spoken was the word soham, S-O-H-M.
Yeah.
And that word translated means realize thyself. Mm-hmm. And if you take that in what you were saying earlier, to realize thyself means, wait a second, I'm an individualized, unique, whole, and perfect expression of the infinite. I am a microcosm of the macrocosm. I have been given the ability to create my life experience however I choose to do that. I do that as I increase my level of awareness. So the question becomes, how do I choose to realize myself? Mm-hmm. And when people say they're lost, I go back to knowing what your top values are. Because when I heard my prayer partner died, I turned to my values and said, okay, wait a second. How am I going to look at this? And then how am I going to look at my life in respect to what do I value? And my value was to become more aware, to teach, and to interconnect with other people. Those are my top three values. And so what I had to do then is I had to make a conscious effort to put my energy there. So I didn't lose focus. Mm-hmm. I still had purpose. Mm-hmm. I still grieve, I still feel, but I'm still Lee. And then the other thing that I would say to people is, on your calendar are the most important things scheduled. So every morning I wake up, Wim Hof breathing, followed by deep meditation with my wife, followed by going to the gym and eating healthy. So the basics of my spiritual nourishment, my physical body nourishment, they're there. They're on my calendar. We don't miss those.
Yeah.
That keeps me centered and balanced.
Well, that's good. I mean, it's doing those kinds of things that's going to set you up for success.
Yeah.
My first value, if I were to pick a value, the thing that I don't want to miss and look forward to, and if I miss it for some reason, I feel like I just missed an opportunity, and that is meditation.
Yeah.
And exploring the inner world. You know, when Jesus said there are many mansions in my Father's house, I think there are many mansions in the mind and in that world that's beyond. And trying to find my way through all of that is interesting to me. And that this life has always been kind of a secondary piece to it, because if I didn't have the body, I wouldn't have the experiences necessary to get me what I need to know to move on. That's my perspective on it. But I never lose sight of a spiritual being and then a physical being. And that beingness is all important. When you say where people are putting their awareness, actually I think 99% of the world doesn't do anything more than what automatically happens.
Yeah.
The unconscious just runs their lives for them. So, and in a sense, if neuroscience is correct, in the first 4 to 7 years of your life, you're programmed for good.
Yep.
And whether you're using so-and-so's new technique for breaking the habits of being who you are, to a song that reminds you of being somebody different, you're still acting out of all that stuff. It's like I always used to say about psychology is, I can't even imagine how many beliefs there are in my unconscious. And for me to go exploring in there is like the blind leading the blind. What am I looking for? And what does it mean if I find it? I'm like, is that going to change my entire life if I find that one belief? And is that negative habit pattern, is that in there? How am I going to find that? I don't have a torch to light the cave. But Ernest really gave us some great insights on some of this. And he says, you don't need to go changing those old beliefs. You don't need to go in there with a torch and try to find that negative pattern. Do the right thing, and it will change that pattern. Believe differently, and that will change that pattern.
And Larry, I want to add to that before we go on, is that when you say do the right thing, it means do the right thing for you based on who you perceive you are and where you want to go. I want to make sure the audience understand there's no right or wrong here.
Right. The only reference to right or wrong is when the ego gets in and judges.
Yep.
And what's wrong for me is what's not working.
Yeah.
So,
well,
but I don't.
It
I don't
is
go
working.
right and
it's
wrong.
just not going. It is working, Larry. It's just not going where you want it to go.
Then it's not working. That's like driving a car. If I don't care where it goes, it's going to get me there.
Well, because Ernest made it very clear there is a power greater than us, and we can use it. But he could have gone on and said there is a power greater than us that we can use, that whether we use it consciously or unconsciously, it is working in our lives 24/7.
Well, that's what we were saying when we talk about, most people are living an unconscious life, is the unconscious is actually running them. All those beliefs and patterns are running their life. They're not even to the level of aware that that's what's going on.
Yeah.
And yet we know from even whether it's the Indian mystics or the current people like Wayne Dyer and others, it's been said over and over again that you're living out of the unconscious, and it's programmed primarily in those early years with negative aspects.
Yeah.
And difficult beliefs. And we want this dream, like I said as we started out, we have that scale and this dream is what we want, and we're doing absolutely the opposite to that. Why? Because of the unconscious.
Yeah. We are programmed little robots, and until we change our software,
people are worried about robots coming into the world, and I'm going, what are you talking about? There's 8 million of them right now.
Exactly. That's the funny thing. We're just going to add to the 8 billion.
Yeah. The only difference is they're not going to have an emotion that says I did something wrong.
That's right. God help us then.
Oh, no, he won't.
That's right, too. I love that.
Yeah. So it's I love the whole robotics world. It's just amusing. The first time that I saw the MIT robotics division of the Institute, they were displaying their robots by having them fight. I'm going, are you kidding? This is what it's come to. We program robots to do the things we really want them to do that are habitual things that would nobody really wants to do, and yet we have them fighting. What does that tell us about ourselves?
Just look at Star Wars. Look at all the robots in Star Wars or any of these other movies. Look at Avatar, where they had these robotic things and you fit inside, and everything's about the same consciousness that the humans have today. It's about war. It's about power. It's about greed. They've forgotten love. How can we expand through artificial intelligence to have an experience of a deeper love? That would be fascinating. Put on 3D glasses and have a 3D experience, a virtual experience of perfect love.
Well, we tried that. We tried that in the 60s with psilocybin and LSD and mushrooms and everything else. We got it.
Yeah.
It didn't last.
No.
So we're like, okay, well, I got an hour of that, but that wasn't enough. I want more, like Ram Dass.
But you said something really important there. It was never enough. And the question, let's come back to the whole balance thing. Can you ever be in balance for really an extended period of time? Or are we moving from one side of the coin to the other, and then we find those moments of balance which are rejuvenating, recharging, reconnecting, and that's where we experience that unconditional love. But I think because we're in the human body and we're in the ego, that we're not meant to be in that state of perfect balance all the time. We're meant to move in and out, but through awareness, we can bring ourselves back.
Well, I think from my perspective, the dualistic world that we're talking about is we do live in a human body and we are having a human experience. And there are many enlightened souls that are still pushing karmas out of their system and are, look at Russell Brand. Russell Brand, look at the kinds of things that he's done in his life, and yet he's had a transcendent, enlightened experience. And then there are many others, Ram Dass. So the thing that people get confused about in my mind in terms of enlightenment is they think once they're enlightened, everything becomes hunky-dory. And I'm like, okay, and by the way, what about those 500 jillion beliefs that you still have?
Yeah.
Oh, they're there. And they're still operating because from my perspective, these are the karmas, the things that have held over, the energy packets that have come from lifetimes before that are trying to get complete. But if I'm in the presence, if I'm in the awareness, then all of this is going to unfold as it needs to unfold no matter what. And I'm unfettered, untroubled, in peace, in love, in harmony, in joy, as the world does what the world does. It's like, I don't care about the movie. It's taking care of itself.
Yeah.
I just want to be sure that I know that I'm watching the movie and not it.
Yeah, that's that whole thing about the observer and being the observed. That is the key. And that's not easy to do.
No, not at all. That's why there has been so many teachings for thousands of years, and still we have a small percentage of the population that's there. Yeah, and in terms of, we have an astral plane and a mental plane and a causal plane and spiritual planes way beyond what most people even understand. This is the physical plane is the lowest plane of all.
Yeah.
This is where atoms are the grossest. It's where we have the least amount of spiritual energy. And we need to know, hey, this is the point of the down before we start up again. And we get to transfer into the next plane and the next plane, the next plane. Or if we're so fortunate that we've had kindness for 500 lives in the past, that we get to go directly into that place of home. But I think we are desperate in these times to find something that we can anchor ourselves to that is going to give us a sense of being and happiness and peace and joy. And we've anchored ourselves to the wrong thing. We've anchored ourselves to all the things that are temporary. And they come and go and they disappoint us, just like, it's like having a toy when you're a kid. And it's wonderful when you open the package at Christmas and then you toss it over on the side of the room and you go to the next package to get the next thing.
Yeah.
We keep going for the thing that sparkles the most.
Yep. And, I've been watching the new documentary on the Beatles, Let It Be. And the thing that I have found the most fascinating in it is how chaotic the creative process is. Mm-hmm. And I think that people don't understand that to become aware is to create a new level of awareness. And in the creation of that new level of awareness, there's going to be chaos. Mm-hmm. And the idea is, how do you stay centered moving through the chaos as you create that new level of awareness? And that's the journey. Because we have not been trained. I don't know about you, but I was never taught, how do you move through chaos? How do you stay committed to the path? How do you anchor yourself while you move through this, knowing that on the other side, there's tremendous benefits for you?
Mm-hmm.
And that's true.
That's the point, is we don't realize the extended benefits that are coming. We're so focused in on what's happening now to us.
Yep.
And we really don't have an understanding. We're never taught that what's taking place in our life, and the vast majority of this unconscious, which is showing itself and out picturing, and the vast majority of the what they call vipassana from the past, the vasanas from the past, those past lives, are out picturing. And if you are so into the movie, you're going to be on the up and down roller coaster all the time.
Yeah.
But if you're the one watching the movie, you're not. And you can just let that go. Now, there's much more to that, obviously, in that story. But in the simplest form, if we could be detached from our life and watch our life happening, we would go, wow, isn't that interesting? Isn't that interesting?
Yeah. And, when I go to a scary movie, I have a hard time detaching. I'm there covering my eyes.
Yeah. And we tend to be covering our eyes through life.
All the time.
So I think if people would take something away from this, what would be the one thing that you would share that people could take away?
It's where you started. You go to meditation. Build a daily meditation practice. Twice a day, 20 minutes is the ideal. I was just doing another edit of my book. It seems like it's a never-ending edit process when you're putting a book together. And the one thing I notice is that I've got that in one of the key chapters, is that to get grounded and to claim your power, it's to meditate every day. And don't ever break the habit. And if you do break it, start right back up. Get right back on that mat and meditate again. Because that's where you find your peace. That's where you find your balance.
Yeah. I did a Saturday night, I did a meditation program. It was from India, so it was at 11:30 my time. And it was a 2.5-hour meditation. And I was sitting in a lotus position, unfortunately, because at my age, when she said, "You can get up now, Larry," I said, "No, I can't." Hang on a second. I got to roll over a couple of times before I can move.
I gave up the lotus position, Larry. I gave it up.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. I think the one takeaway, I like what you're saying. Meditation is it, and that you can do meditation in a lot of different forms, but even a 2-minute meditation during the day when you stop for a second and you bring your awareness inside is helpful because it reduces the kind of stress people go through.
Yep.
And if you could do 10 minutes or 20 minutes or 30 minutes, I do 15 minutes of a yoga stretching so that I can allow my body to be at peace. And then I sit and do my meditation. And boy, if there's times that I miss it, I really miss it. And I want to get back to it right away. I don't care if it's at 3 o'clock in the morning and I've missed it that afternoon. I'm going to sit.
Yeah.
It's just necessary. So I think that's a great jumping off place for us to pick up next time, is to talk about a few more of the meditation techniques that are out there and share with people a few more of what Ernest Holmes had to say about these kinds of things. He didn't talk directly about meditation, but he sure did a lot of it.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll catch you next week, and we'll see everybody next week. And Reverend Lee has a book coming out very soon as he finishes the 13th edit. And I have the same. I actually have a book I'm working on that's been over a year and a half now. So at some point I will finish the edit.
Yeah.
Hemingway once said, you're never done editing. You just have to have an editor who kicks you in the butt and takes the manuscript and runs.
I think that's true, because a month ago I said it's perfect, and now I go through it and I go, no, Lee.
Yeah. How did that happen? Who wrote that? Oh, I did.
Yeah. See, we're always changing, Larry.
Yeah.
We're always changing, and so the perspective shifts from day to day.
Well,
Anyway,
maybe that's a good sign for just doing a podcast instead of a book.
there you go. Podcasts are so much easier because we get to be present where we are in this moment.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it doesn't get any better than that. So folks out there, you got us and we're real.
All right, see ya.
Take care.
Beyond Limits. Join us and ask your questions. Check our website for details on our call-in shows. Check beyondlimitsradio.com. That's beyondlimitsradio.com.